Hello, welcome to the first in a series of videos about my in-development animated series, The Crystal Spire. I don't have a name for this series yet, so if you have any suggestions, feel free to let me know in the comments. In this video, I'll be introducing the four main characters, together known as the Flock. I hope you enjoy. I'm kind of nervous because this is my first time doing a proper video, so please be nice. Magic in the world of Selûne works in a very specific way. It exists in the air as invisible particles able to be manipulated with spells by people who spend years studying their craft. In modern day Selûne, magic isn't really a thing among regular people. It's used like electricity to power machinery, and occasionally simple illusion spells are used by performers for fun tricks. Powerful magic isn't really used, and offensive spells are basically unheard of, being outlawed hundreds of years ago. As a rule, magic being used in general is extremely uncommon. That being said, Percival Solaris doesn't go outside unless he absolutely has to. He'd much rather stay in his study all day trying to solve whatever mystery he's currently working on. He has a few highly specific interests which he knows about in great detail, and is well known throughout Luminea, much to his disdain, as an incredibly talented magician and investigator. He's often called upon to help with particularly difficult to solve cases, especially ones which involve magic. Percy has spent years trying to perfect the craft of magic, often so deep in hyperfocus he goes days without sleeping, food, or sunlight. This has had some not so great effects on his mental and physical health, although he insists he's fine. But all this studying has led to him being so in tune with magic that he's developed a sort of sixth sense for detecting magical energy. Percy is an odd fellow. Not one for interacting with others, his tone is very flat and he speaks bluntly with little emotion. He is fact-orientated, aloof, and takes everything a little too seriously. One day, Percy is conducting research outdoors. A change. While experimenting with sunlight spell combinations, he accidentally causes a huge structure made out of a strange crystal to erupt from the ground, casting a shockwave of powerful magical energy across the world. Percy is held accountable for his actions and is tasked with gathering a team of adventurers to assist him on an expedition across the world, using his ability to sense magical how the fuck do you say that word? Anomalies? Yeah, magic anomalies. Why did I write that if I don't know how to say it? He can sense when magic is funny, which helps him and his team in the story. By now you've probably noticed that Percy is not a human. In Dungeons & Dragons, obviously, the type of thing he is would be called a tiefling. In the world of Crystal Spire, his species is called a spawnling. Spawnlings are extremely rare. I'm talking, despite living in the capital city, he is probably the only one there. These guys are a once-in-a-lifetime sight for the people of Selûne. Which causes Percy to feel quite out of place in day-to-day life. People have never really seen a spawnling in real life, they've only ever heard stories about them. So Percy is sort of used to feeling like an outcast in more ways than one. And speaking of outcasts, let's move on to the next character we meet in the Crystal Spire story. Milo has been on the run his entire life. He has a lot of secrets which he isn't so hot on sharing with anyone. He is expressive, loud, short-tempered, and a little clumsy, but very skilled with a sword. He loves food more than anything, and despite all his issues, he generally seems to be a pretty cheerful and smiley guy. He isn't really one for commitment. Moving around so much in life has meant he's never really had much of a chance to make friends, and with how many things he has to keep secret, is it even worth trying to connect with people? He meets Percy after looking for an excuse to get out of town. Percy is looking for people to help him on his adventure, and Milo sees this as a great opportunity to get the hell out of where he currently is. All he needs to do is make sure Percy doesn't see any of his wanted posters, which can't be that difficult. Percy and Milo initially start to get along because Milo is not particularly judgmental about who Percy is. You know, he doesn't really care. Milo, in a lot of ways, is an outcast as well, although he doesn't care to elaborate on why exactly. Milo is basically the perfect opposite of Percy. Percy is quiet, introverted, and very, 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 very serious, versus Milo is extremely excitable, loud, cheerful, loves pulling pranks, and doesn't really seem to take life that seriously at all. Overall, sometimes he can act a little bit childish, which leads perfectly into the next character, who is an actual child. Nobody knows what Crest is, and Crest does not physically have enough words to tell anyone what she is. A strange bird-like creature from presumably a faraway land, Crest has been adventuring on her own for a very long time. Well, a long time for a child. She joins the group when they find her and realize that she definitely should not be out here in the middle of nowhere on her own. They try to get rid of her in, nice ways. They take her to an orphanage and they reject her for being too animal-like. They take her to a farm, they reject her for being too people-like. So Crest is kind of stuck with the group because nowhere else wants her. She's kind of a typical child, aside from the fact that she's oddly silent, only being able to communicate in words that other people have already said. She's extremely curious about the world around her and loves being outside, exploring with the gang. Milo is a horrible influence on her, and he uses her to help him shoplift. She finds this great fun. Percy finds this terrible. Neither Percy nor Milo is quite mature enough yet to handle being a parent, and that is where the final member of the group comes in. Grugthanax. I love his name, Grugthanax. He's an orc, and he has an axe. Grugthanax. Also, if you hear a loud noise, it's because there's a helicopter outside right now. Very exciting. Grugthanax has been on the road for a very long time. He is a seasoned bounty hunter, and at the moment, he is currently tracking down a mysterious person with a very, very high reward. Grugthanax doesn't even know what Milo has done to be worth so much money, but he does know that it can't be anything good. He manages to catch up with Percy and Milo pretty quickly, and Percy is not impressed on finding out that Milo is actually a wanted criminal. At the same time, Milo is literally the only person Percy has managed to find to help him in his project, so he defends him and tells Grugthanax, "No, you cannot have him, this one's mine." Eventually they come to an agreement, without Milo's approval, that Grugthanax will help the group join them on their quest, and in return, he can have Milo after the adventure is over. Milo is not very impressed at this. He doesn't really like feeling like he's being babysat. At the same time, Grugthanax is admittedly very cool and very good at adventuring, so he's a good person to know. At the beginning of the story, when we meet Grugthanax, he's a little bit closed off, a bit grumpy, not really one for chatting as he's there to do a job, not to make friends. But as the story goes on, you realize he's actually a pretty cheerful, happy guy. He really likes cooking, he loves fishing, he loves hunting. What a loud car. It is midnight, go to bed. He's kind of the most dad guy you'll ever meet in your life. Another very important thing about Grugthanax is he is not a fan of magic. He thinks it's unnatural, and he thinks people rely on it far too much nowadays. This causes him and Percy to actually have a lot of beef. I don't know, not really beef, but they don't get along very well because they have very different views on how magic works. Grugthanax sees it as something that people don't really need, it's just something that they're using because it's easy. Percy sees it as an extremely interesting science, and Milo sees magic as a weird but interesting kind of art. All three of them have to learn to work together despite their differences, both in terms of what they believe about magic and what they believe about the world in general. So, there's a little bit about each of the main characters of the Crystal Spire. I really hope you found this interesting, and I hope it wasn't too difficult to listen to. This is my first time recording something properly. I'm aware the audio probably isn't very good. I don't currently own a good microphone. I tried to record this on my laptop with an actual, little microphone, and it sounded so unbelievably crispy that the iPad actually sounded better, and that really annoyed me. Either way, I really hope you enjoyed. I hope you found these characters somewhat interesting. I personally am a huge fan of them. This story has been in the works for a couple of years now. It's originally based on a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that my partner was running. The story is very different to what was in the original campaign. There's only two characters that are actually from the campaign in the story, and even then they've been changed quite a lot. So the story doesn't really resemble it at all anymore. It's kind of like how to Train Your Dragon, the movie, is different from the book. It's that kind of deal. It's a very loose adaptation. I've loved story writing my entire life. I've always told myself that one day I'm gonna make one real story from start to finish. I've always told myself that I want to make something visual, like a comic or an animation, and now I'm finally doing that. This is hopefully going to be the first in a series of videos in which I create work for a pitch Bible, so that I could maybe turn the story into an actual series one day. I'm not sure how I'll create it exactly. I'm thinking indie animation seems to be on the up, so it could be fun to maybe see if I could turn this into an indie series for YouTube. It would be sort of aimed at people between the ages of 16 and, well, adults. You know, like, you can watch this if you're under 18, there's not really anything explicit in it, but I would prefer if people around my age, so 20 and up, were watching it. Although, of course, I can't really control who watches it. Yeah. I don't know if my friends actually want to be named or not, so I'll just say you guys know who you are. Thank you to the person who originally created Crest. Crest is wonderful and adorable. And thank you to the person who created Gruxinax, because I'm obsessed with him. And thank you both so much for letting me use your characters, and letting me sort of redo your characters for this story. Right now on screen, there is a speed draw playing of the cover that I drew for the pitch Bible. It's kind of my favorite drawing ever at the moment. I even put it as my laptop background. I'm kind of obsessed with this picture. I don't know, I've loved these characters for a really long time, and I'm really excited to share more about the world they're from and the story. I think it's really strong, and I really do think that one day something could be made of this. I just need people to tell me that they're interested. I'll shut up now and let you enjoy the rest of the video. Please comment if you liked it, and yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.